Hi, my name is Everett. Tonight we are reading Soccer on Sunday, Mary Pope Osborne Magic Trail Series, book number 52, A Merlin Mission. I'm a 7-year-old kid. What happens when a soccer game gets magical? Jack and Annie are about to find out when the Magic Treehouse whisks them back to Mexico City for the 1970 World Cup. They are sure the famous soccer player Pele will be the one to tell them the secret of greatness which they need for Merlin the magician. Thanks to a new friend, Jack and Annie make it to the stadium just in time for the big match. But the stands are packed, and when the game ends, Jack and Annie have to find Pele. How will they discover the secret of greatness in a crowd of 100,000 soccer fans? Have they failed their mission, or can greatness be found when they least expect it? So, if you're staying comfortably, let's begin. Prologue. One summer day in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. It was filled with books. A boy named Jack and his sister Annie found the treehouse and soon discovered it was magic. They could go to any time and place in history just by pointing to a picture in one of the books. While they were gone, no time at all had passed in Frog Creek. Jack and Annie eventually found out that the treehouse belonged to Morgan Le Fay, a magical librarian from the legendary realm of Camelot. They have since traveled on many adventures in the Magic Treehouse and completed many missions for both Morgan Le Fay and her friend Merlin the Magician. Now Merlin needs Jack and Annie's help again. He wants them to travel through time and learn secrets of greatness from 4 people who are called great by the world. Jack and Annie have completed 3 of the 4 missions. They took a trip to ancient Macedonia, where they spent time with Alexander the Great and his warhorse Bucephalus. They visited Coney Island in 1908, where they saw Harry Houdini and his wife Bess perform a magic show. And they had an adventure to Egypt in the 1800s, where they met Florence Nightingale. Back in Frog Creek, they are waiting to see where Merlin will send them to find the 4th secret of greatness. Chapter 1. Seriously, slowly and carefully, Jack ran his hands over the face of the stony cliff. His fingers gripped ridges and bumps. He lodged his bare toes into cracks in the rock. He knew he had to get to the top. He pushed with his legs and pulled with his hands. He was almost there. He reached up and grabbed the overhang of the cliff. The wind screamed and blew against Jack, knocking him off balance. His feet slipped. He was dangling by one hand. Jack! Jack opened his eyes. It was dark. He faintly could see Annie in the moonlight. Annie, he whispered. We have to go, she said. I have to get down, said Jack. He closed his eyes. He was still hanging from the cliff. Annie shook Jack's shoulder. Jack, wake up! Oh! Jack sat straight up. Oh man, I was hanging from the cliff in Egypt. You were dreaming about our last mission, interrupted Annie. Remember you were hanging from a cliff, but everything turned out to be okay? We saved Kaku, remember? The little baboon? Right, breathed Jack. He rubbed his eyes and looked at Annie. What's going on? What time is it? Why are you awake? We have to go to the woods, said Annie. It's back. How do you know? Said Jack. I couldn't sleep, said Annie. I was looking out my window when I saw a streak of light. That's it, said Jack, jumping out of bed. Let's go. Are Mom and Dad awake? No, if we leave now, we'll be back before they get up, said Annie. Meet you downstairs. She slipped out of Jack's room. Jack didn't even turn on his light. He changed into a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. He pulled on his socks and sneakers. He threw his notebook and pencil into his pack. And then he tiptoed downstairs and and out the front door. Annie was waiting on the porch. The sun was about to rise. The birds had started to chirp in the warm summer dawn. "Ready?" Jack whispered. Jack and Annie left the front porch and stepped lightly over the wet grass of their front yard. They hurried up the sidewalk and crossed the street and into the Frog Creek woods. As they walked between the trees, the purple-blue sky overhead was growing brighter. Birdsong filled the woods. "I wonder where we'll be going today," said Jack. "And what will the secret of greatness that makes the ring of truth glow?" said Annie. Then she began to speak in a dramatic voice, like a TV announcer. "What amazing person will Jack and Annie meet today?" Jack laughed, then spoke dramatically too. "And when will they sniff the mist gathered at the first day of the new moon on the Isle of Avalon? And when they do, what great talent will they choose for themselves?" said Annie. Jack laughed again and shook his head. "Our lives are crazy," said Annie. "You think?" said Jack. The chorus of birds grew louder as the pale gold of dawn filtered down through the trees. When Jack and Annie came to the tallest oak in the woods, they looked up into the branches. The magic treehouse was outlined against the sky. Without a word, Annie grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Jack followed. Jack and Annie climbed into the shadowy tree house. A ray of sunlight slanted through the window. It shone directly on a sheet of paper lying on the wooden floor. On the paper, Jack had written the secrets of greatness they had learned on their last 3 missions: humility, hard work, meaning, and purpose. A gold ring, a tiny bottle, and a yellow scroll lay next to the paper. Jack picked up the scroll, unrolled it, and read aloud. "Dear Jack and Annie, I hope you have enjoyed traveling to Egypt and learning the secret of greatness from Florence Nightingale. Now you must learn the 4th secret of greatness from one of the greatest athletes of all time, Pele the Great." "Pele the Great," said Jack. "He was a brilliant soccer player for Brazil." "I know. Coach Cooney told us all about him," said Annie. "This is so cool," said Jack. "Wait," said Annie. "There's more. When you complete your mission, come to Camelot before you return home. M." "So we're going to Camelot," said Jack. "Yep," said Annie. "And I wonder if we're going to Brazil too." She and Jack looked around the treehouse for a book that would help them on their mission. "There," said Annie. She picked up a pamphlet lying in a shadowy corner. "I don't believe it." What?" said Jack. "Look." Annie handed him the pamphlet. "The World Cup," said Jack. "That's the biggest sport event on the planet." "I know," said Annie. "Look, it's in Mexico. I've always wanted to go to Mexico." When she opened the pamphlet, she gasped. "And look what Merlin gave us." She held up 2 purple tickets. "Mexico 70 final," Jack read, reading a ticket. "There are lots of games during the World Cup, but there's only one final." "Thank you, Merlin," Annie said with a laugh. "So Pele must be playing in the finals," said Jack. "Yep." Annie shoved their tickets into her back pocket. "Don't forget this," said Jack. He grabbed the small bottle lying on the floor and held it up to the sunlight. Sparkling mist swirled inside. "Mist gathered at the first light on the first day of the new moon on the Isle of Avalon," said Jack. Whenever he and Annie breathed in the magic mist and made a wish, they magically had a great talent for 1 hour. Jack tucked the bottle into his pack. Annie picked up the gold ring from the floor. "And there's the ring of truth," she said. "You get to wear it this time. Just keep checking it when you're with Pele." "Don't worry," said Jack as he slipped the ring onto his finger. The ring of truth would shine like a fiery light when they discovered the fourth secret of greatness. Let's go, said Danny. I still can't believe we're actually heading to the Mexico to a World Cup soccer game to meet Pele the Great. I mean, seriously? Seriously, said Annie. Jack pointed to the cover of their program. I seriously wish we could go to Mexico City. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Lucky Ducks. There in Mexico City was hot, humid, and smoggy. Jack heard screeching car tires, honking horns, and roaring truck motors. He looked out at his clothes. He was wearing his own jeans and t-shirt. Our clothes didn't change, he said. That's because kids wore shorts and a t-shirt in the 1970s. Remember the photos of Mom and Dad? Said Annie. Right, said Jack. He and Annie looked out the window. The treehouse had landed in a row of tall leafy trees lining a busy street. Beyond the branches was a jagged skyline with towers and tall buildings. Below the branches, traffic moved noisily out an avenue. It looks like we landed in the middle of the city, said Jack. He opened their World Cup program to the first page and read, Mexico City is one of the largest cities in the world. Its citizens are overjoyed that their city has been chosen to host the 1970 World Cup Games. Held every 4 years, the games are played for several weeks. This year, 16 countries will compete in matches and determine the final winner. And we've got tickets to see the final winner, Jack said, grinning. I wonder which two teams will be playing. He thumbed through the booklet and saw page after page of black and white photos of teams competing in the World Cup Games. Mexico, Belgium, Sweden, Israel, Italy, England, Romania, West Germany, Brazil, Annie said, looking over his shoulder. There he is, said Jack. Arantes Nascimento, Pele. Well, we know that Brazil made it to the final game, or we wouldn't be here, said Annie. But I wonder who they're playing. We'll find out soon. Jack closed the program. As he put it into his backpack, he saw his notebook and pencil in the bottle of magic mist and some coins and bills inside. Look, Mexican money, pesos. We have 5 and 10 peso coins and bills worth 50 pesos. Sounds like a lot, said Annie. We can buy Mexican food when we're hungry. Tacos, enchiladas, burritos. I love Mexican food. Who doesn't, said Jack. Who doesn't love everything we're about to do? He pulled on his backpack and led the way down the rope ladder. When Jack and Annie reached the ground, they saw a large white building with an American flag engraved on the front wall of the building were the words, Embassy of the United States. A uniformed guard stood under a green awning at the entrance. Perfect. We landed in front of the U.S. Embassy, said Jack. Why is that perfect, said Annie. A country's embassy is supposed to help citizens when they visit another country, said Jack. Oh, that is perfect, said Annie. Come on. Jack and Annie headed toward the entrance. Before they got to the door, the guard stepped from under the awning. Sorry, kids, he said. The embassy is closed on Sundays. The man looked very formal in his blue uniform, jacket, and white hat and gloves. But he sounded friendly. He spoke with a southern accent. Oh, we were just looking for information, said Jack. We're Americans. Groovy. Where are y'all from? The guard asked. We're Jack and Annie from Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, said Annie. I'm Benny from Valdosta, Georgia, said the guard. Pleased to meet you. Hi, Benny, said Jack. We're going to the World Cup games that's being played. And Lucky Ducks, Benny broke in. It's going to be a game of a lifetime. Game of a lifetime, said Jack. Today's the final match. Best two teams in the world. Italy plays Brazil, said Benny. Brazil, that's Pele's team, right? Said Jack. Sure is, said Benny. Pele the Great. Jack grinned at Annie. This is so cool, he said. No kidding, said Annie. Y'all seem to really love soccer, said Benny. We do, said Annie. We love to watch it and play it, said Annie. Well, you're unusual, said Benny. Most American kids hardly know anything about soccer. Yeah, right, said Jack. His dad had told them that kids rarely played soccer when he was growing up. Don't worry, said Annie. It will become more popular with time. In fact, by 2014, excuse me, Jack interrupted, but do you know when this match starts and where it is? Benny looked at his watch. Well, it's almost 10 a.m. now, he said. So you've got 2 hours till kickoff at Aztec Stadium. That's about 10 miles south of here. 10 miles, said Jack. Don't worry, said Benny. Public transportation can get you there pretty fast. Just walk a few blocks to the Metro Insurgentes station. That's where you'll catch the Metro. Metro, said Jack. It's like what we call a subway train in the States, said Benny. You all need to catch the red line in the direction of the Pantitlin. And then, wait please, said Jack. He pulled out his notebook and pencil. Could you spell that, please? Here, I'll write down, said the guard. Jack gave his notebook and pencil to Benny. The friendly guard mumbled the directions to himself as he wrote down. Walk to Metro Insurgentes, then red line to Pinos Suárez, then blue line to Tascania. Last stop, then Aztec Stadium. It sounds complicated, said Jack. Just ask somebody if you get lost, said Benny. Folks here are super nice. They'll be glad to help. The guard handed the notebook and pencil to Jack. Thanks, said Jack. He tore out the sheet with Benny's directions and put it in his pocket of his shorts. I hope you all have seats for the game, said Benny. For what I hear, it's completely sold out. Don't worry, we have tickets, said Annie. She showed them to Benny. Far out, said Benny. You all have 2 of the best seats in the house. Really, said Jack. He couldn't believe it. How in the world did you get these seats, said Benny. Benny shrugged. We know somebody who knows somebody, she said. Well, don't let anybody see those tickets, said Benny. People will sell those mothers for those seats. Annie laughed as she put the tickets back in her pocket. So how do we get to the Metro train, Benny? She asked. Go up the street to the big statue of the angel. Turn left into Florencia, and after a couple of blocks, ask somebody to directions you to Insurgentes. That's Insurgentes, said the guard, sounding out the word. Thanks, Benny. You've been a big help, said Annie. Yeah, thanks, said Jack. You're welcome any time, said the guard. Jack put the program book and his pencil back into his backpack. Then he and Annie waved goodbye and headed away from the embassy. When they got to the sidewalk, they looked up and down the busy avenue. Where's the angels? Said Annie. She pointed to a huge winged angel looming in the distance. Good, it's not that far, said Jack. The air was hot and humid and smelled like car exhaust, but Jack was so excited nothing bothered him and Annie as he and Annie walked past banks, airline offices, and fancy hotels. Then they reached the Golden Angel in the middle of a traffic circle. Jack checked Benny's directions. Then he looked around. There it is, he said, pointing to a sign that said Florencia Avenue. They hurried across the street and headed up Florencia. Benny said that when we get to the street, we should ask somebody for help, said Annie. Excuse me, she called to a woman waiting at a stop Like, could you please tell us how to get to find... She turned to Jack. What's the name? Insurgentes, Jack said, sounding out the word like Benny had. Yes, said the woman with a smile. Just past Laundress Street. She pointed straight ahead. Thank you, said Annie. She and Jack started walking again. I can't believe we have the best seats in the stadium, said Jack. It makes sense, said Annie. Merlin gave us those seats to help us with our mission. Right, like maybe Pele will be near us and we'll get to meet him, said Jack. Then somehow he'll reveal the secret of greatness, and then we can go to Camelot and meet with Merlin. We're super lucky ducks, said Annie. Quack, quack. Chapter 3. Hurry up for the World Cup. Look, Insurgentes, said Jack, pointing to a sign on the large building that said Mercado Insurgentes. That's it, the metro we're supposed to catch, said Annie. Come on. Annie and Jack joined the crowd heading into the Insurgentes building. They strolled down the corridor between stalls selling ponchos, beaded bags, wooden animals, baskets, wolves with palm leaves, and silver jewelry. Tons of silver jewelry. The smell of sizzling meat came from food stands. Nothing looked like a train or subway station. Finally, Jack stopped near a group of men in a sombreros playing guitars, violins, and trumpets. He turned to Annie. It doesn't feel right, he yelled above the noise of the music. We must have made a mistake, Annie yelled back. Let's get out of here, said Jack. We're wasting time. He and Annie hurried back through the corridor between stalls. They wove around shoppers until they escaped through the entrance of the giant market. A soft, warm rain had started to fall. I don't get it, said Jack. He pointed to the sign on the building. It says Mercado Insurgentes. Look at Mickey's notes again, said Annie. Jack pulled out the directions. Oh, no. He said Benny wrote Metro Insurgentes, not Mercado Insurgentes. I'll ask for help, said Annie. She took the directions and walked over to an old man reading a newspaper on a bench. Excuse me, sir, where is Metro Insurgentes, please? The old man pointed up the street. Thanks, said Annie. She ran back to Jack and handed him the sheet of directions. Jack stuffed it into his backpack. Hurry, or we'll be late, said Jack. Jack and Annie ran up the street through the warm, drizzling rain. They stopped when they came to an overpass jammed with trucks and cars in a sunken plaza. Below was a round concrete building covered with posters and murals. One sign said Plaza Insurgentes, another said Metro Station. That's it, said Jack. He and Annie ran down to the plaza. They hurried by a fountain, vendors, and snack bars until they came to a rounded entrance of the metro. When they stepped into the station, the noise was deafening, even louder in the market. Hordes of people were pushing up and down the stairs. Jack and Annie joined the stream of traffic going down. Beyond the stairs was a row of turnstiles. How do we do this, said Annie. Watch what everyone else is doing, said Jack. One at a time, people were dropping a single coin into slots in a turnstile and then passing through. Jack pulled out 2 pesos of his backpack and gave one to Annie. Copying everyone else, they passed through the turnstile into the metro platform. That wasn't so hard, said Annie. Another huge crowd was waiting on the sweltering platform for the next train. Jack pulled out the directions again. Red line to Pinos Suarez, he shouted to Annie above the noise. Then Blue Line to Tuscania. Then we get off at the last stop and get a train to Aztec Stadium. Easy, yelled Annie. Really, thought Jack. The train was rolling in. Red line, Annie shouted to a woman. The woman nodded. The metro train came to a stop. The doors opened. As passengers spilled off the train, people on the platform surged forward. Jack grabbed Annie's hand and they moved with the crowd. But before they could even get close to the train, a bell rang and the doors closed shut. The people left on the platform jumped back as the train pulled away. We'll get the next one, Jack shouted to Annie. Soon another train rolled in. Jack grabbed Annie's hand and they surged forward with the crowd. They were pushed and shoved as they tried to get through the doors. Finally, they were inside. Safe, said Jack, collapsing onto a seat with Annie. But they were nearly squashed as more and more passengers piled into the metro. More and more kept cramming in until people were practically sitting on Jack and Annie's laps. A bell rang. The doors closed. The train pulled away from the station. As it rumbled through the dark tunnel, the air in the car was suffocating. Jack could feel sweat trickling down his face and on the back of his neck. What's our stop? Annie yelled to Jack. Jack reached into his back pocket. The paper with the directions wasn't there. He wrestled his backpack off his pack and looked inside. The sheet of paper wasn't there either. Do you have our directions? He shouted to Annie. No, you had them, said Annie. I must have dropped them, said Jack, panicking. Don't worry, said Annie. Excuse me, she yelled to a woman standing over them. How do we get to Aztec Station? The woman shrugged, then asked the man, who asked another woman. But the train stopped and all three people hurried off without answering Annie's question. Should we get off too? Asked Annie. I don't know, said Jack. We don't know if this is the right station. They're not announcing where we are. New passengers piled into the car, and the aisle became even more crowded. Once again, as the train took off, Jack and Annie were squashed in their seats and by the crush of the passengers. The aisle was Aztec. Where is Aztec Stadium? Jack yelled to no one in particular. Get off at Pino Suarez, a man shouted above the roar. The man said more, but Jack couldn't hear him. Before he could ask the man to repeat his directions, the train stopped, and the man pushed his way out of the doors. And is this Pino Suarez? Jack shouted to Annie. He looked wildly around, trying to find a sign. This is a nightmare. Is this Pino Suarez? Annie yelled to a teenage girl with a large pack. Sorry, I do not know, said the girl. Check the map. She pointed to a large map on the far wall of the train. Let's look at that. But it was impossible to... Let's go, but it was impossible to get to the map. The aisle had already filled up with new passengers. Too late, said Annie. The metro doors closed, and the train thundered through the dark tunnel. Chapter 4, Follow Me. Wait till we stop again, Annie yelled to Jack. But what if we just missed our stop? Said Jack. What if it was Pino Suarez? We're stopping again. We have to check that map, said Annie. The train slowed for the next stop. Jack and Annie both got ready to jump out of their seats, but when the metro doors jerked open, hardly anyone got off. Instead, new travelers pushed their way into the car. Jack and Annie hardly had room to breathe, much less stand up and check the map. No way, Jack shouted to Annie. Can someone help us? Annie called. We need to get to the World Cup game. Where's the stop for Pino Suarez? Nobody seemed to hear her. "This is hopeless," said Jack. Then he heard a small voice shouting above the noise of the train. "Excuse me, pardon me, please." A Mexican boy squeezed through the crowd to Jack and Annie. "Did you say you were going to the World Cup game?" he shouted. "Yes," said Annie. "Me too," said the boy. "Can I help you?" "Yes," said Jack, relieved. "We don't know where to get off." "Next stop, Pina Suarez," said the boy. "Can you follow?" "You can follow me." As soon as the train stopped, Jack and Annie followed the boy, squeezing past people to get to the doors. Excuse me," they said. Then all three of them popped off the hot, airless train. Half of the people on the train got off with them. "Oh man, that was crazy," said Jack. He was covered in sweat. "Thank you," Annie said to the boy. "It's not over yet," said the boy, smiling. He had a cheerful, open face. "We have to catch the blue line to Tascania." "Can we come with you?" Annie asked. "We lost our directions." "Of course," said the boy. "This way. Pronto." Jack and Annie followed the boy down a tunnel and around the corner to the blue line. Hordes of people were waiting for the metro line too. "My father told me to get to the end of the platform," said the boy. "The last train cars are never as crowded." As the train rolled in to the station, Jack and Annie quickly followed the boy down the platform. They sped up when the doors opened. Just before the doors closed again, the three of them jumped into the last car of the train. The boy was right. The car wasn't crowded at all. They got good seats together. Jack felt hugely relieved. Thank you for helping us," he said. "You're welcome," said the boy. "My name is Roberto." He held out his hand. Jack shook Roberto's hand. "I'm Jack," he said. "And I'm Annie," said Annie, shaking his hand too. "Are you going to the game alone, Roberto?" "Yes, my parents gave me a ticket for my birthday present," said Roberto. "It's the best present I've ever got." "Is today your birthday?" asked Jack. Roberto nodded. "I'm turning 10 years old today." "Happy birthday," Jack and Annie said together. "I'm 10 too," said Annie. "Jack's 11. "Why didn't your mom and dad come with you?" asked Jack. They could only afford one ticket," said Roberto. "I have 8 brothers and sisters. It will be my job to tell them everything I see. They will all be waiting for my stories about the great game." A big smile. He smiled his big smile again. The train began to slow down. "We get off here," said Roberto, standing up. Jack and Annie followed Roberto off the metro, down the underground passageway, then out of the stifling station into the breezy, wet air. Jack felt 1,000 times better. "Now we take tram line 23, said Roberto. "That's like the subway above ground, right?" said Jack. "Yes, come with me," said Roberto. Roberto led Jack and Annie across the walkway to the trolley tracks. Hundreds of people stood in line waiting to board the packed trams. As they joined one of the lines, Jack pulled out some pesos. "Everyone's going to the World Cup champion game," said Roberto. "People have come from Mexico and all over South America and Europe to see the game." "Did you hear that would be a game of a lifetime?" said Jack. "Absolutely," said Roberto. "Did you know Pele was playing us, Danny?" "Of course, Pele the Great," said Roberto. "He has made over 1,000 goals and his whole team is fantastic. They are called the Beautiful Team." "That's cool," said Jack. 3 pesos, said the driver at the door of the tram. Roberto reached into his pocket, but Jack stopped him. "I got it," he said. Jack handed over 3 pesos. "Thank you, Jack," said Roberto. Then they all hopped aboard the tram. Then they all hopped aboard the tram bound for the World Cup championship game. There were no empty seats, so they stood on the aisle and held onto one pole. As the tram began moving, Jack, Annie, and Roberto huddled together and talked excitedly. Brazil is the best team in history, said Roberto. But Italy is a great team too. Did you hear the story of Italy playing West Germany in a semi-final match? No, what happened, said Annie. Even though Italy was behind, they never gave up, said Roberto. Italy scored 5 goals in the extra time. He heaved a happy sigh. I can't believe it. I never thought in my life I would be here today to see the game. Me neither, said Annie. Jack laughed. Not in a million years. We'll arrive at Aztec Stadium soon, said Roberto, looking out the window. Thanks for your help, said Jack. He really liked this kid. He was also amazed that a 10-year-old could get around the city so easily. Do you go to the stadium a lot? No, this is my first time, he said. But I have practiced this trip in my mind many times. My father told me exactly what to do. Do you play soccer, said Annie. I try. I'm not really great, Roberto said. Me neither, said Annie. I love it, but I'm not great. Same with me, said Jack. Love it, not great. And they all laughed. By the time the tram arrived at the station near the stadium, the clouds had disappeared. Bright sunshine had replaced the drizzling rain. Steam was rising from a gigantic parking lot. That's Aztec Stadium, Roberto said, pointing out the window to an enormous concrete building. Cool, said Jack. He looked at his watch. It's 11:35. 25 minutes until kickoff, said Roberto. We made it. All because of you, Roberto, said Annie. Stay with me, the Mexican boy said with a smile, and I'll take good care of you. Chapter 5, High in the Sky. When the doors opened, Roberto led Jack and Annie off the tram. They walked down a ramp from the station and headed into the huge parking area. Aztec Stadium is named for the people who built an empire in this part of Mexico many hundreds of years ago, said Roberto. Really, said Jack. He read about the Aztec Empire. He could imagine the enormous stadium being familiar to an Aztec pyramid. Thousands of spectators flooded the parking lot. They wore bright summer clothes and wide-brimmed hats. Vendors walked among the big cars selling Brazilian, Italian, and Mexican flags. Kids were waving souvenir programs, soccer shirts, and caps for sale. Jack and Annie followed Roberto near the entrance to the nearest entrance, and Annie held out their 2 tickets. That way, Gateway, a stadium official said. He pointed to one of the other entrances. When Roberto showed his ticket, the man pointed in the same direction. Hooray! I hope I'm sitting there, he said. Me too, said Jack. Jack, Annie, and Roberto followed a crowd through Gate G and into the giant stadium. They all looked up at the stands. Dozens of tiers of seats rose above the soccer field. The rows were so steep it looked as if the highest spectators might fall straight down onto the field. This place is huge, said Jack. Where do we go now? Said Annie. My father said that I should ask an official, said Roberto, looking around. Over there. He led Jack and Annie to an usher in uniform standing at the bottom of an aisle. Can you please tell us where our seats are? Annie asked. She showed her ticket to the woman. When the woman looked at her ticket, her eyes grew wide. You have some of the best seats in the whole stadium, she said. She pointed to the section closest to the field. Over there, second row, right on the aisle. Yay, said Jack. The guard of the embassy had been right. They did have incredible seats. Seats that would help them get close enough to learn Pele to learn the secret of greatness. Jack turned excitedly to Roberto. "Where's your seat?" he asked. Roberto showed his ticket to the usher. "Where do I go?" he asked. "Well, you are in the same aisle as your friends," said the woman told Roberto. "Fantastic," he said with a big grin. "But I'm afraid your seat is in a different section," said the usher. She pointed all the way up. "It's near the very top, high up in the sky." The smile left Roberto's face, but then it returned. "I'd better go," he said. "It was great meeting you." "You too," said Jack. "Goodbye," Jack and Annie said to Roberto. And he started up the steep steps to the top of the stadium. "Roberto, wait!" "Roberto, wait!" Annie called, and she hurried up the steps after him. Jack followed her. "Listen, I want to trade seats with you," she said. She held out her ticket. "Really?" thought Jack. "What about our mission?" "Oh, no, I cannot," said Roberto. "Yes, you can," said Annie. "Please, we want to trade seats." "But why?" asked Roberto. "Because it's your birthday," said Annie. "And if you have a good seat, you can tell your 8 brothers and sisters and your parents all about the game. So it'd be like 11 people are getting a good seat, not just one." "That actually makes sense," thought Jack. Still, he was amazed by Annie's generosity. "But no, I cannot," said Roberto. "Yes, you can," said Annie. She grabbed Roberto's ticket and put it in her own hand. "You guys have fun." She started up the stairs. Jack felt a wave of guilt. "Wait, stop. That's not fair," he said to Annie. "Maybe I should give up my seat." "No, it's okay. I'll give up mine," said Annie. Roberto laughed. "You both are too kind," he said. I cannot take either of your seats." Roberto handed Annie her ticket and took his back. "No, please, I want," Annie protested. "Wait, I have another idea," Jack said to Annie. "We can take turns. I'll switch with Roberto for the first half and you switch him for the second half." "Perfect," said Annie. "That way Roberto will get a good view of the whole game, and you and I will each get a great view for half of the time." "Right." Jack pulled the ring of truth off his finger. He slipped it onto Annie's hand and spoke softly to her. "The person who's sitting close to the field should get to wear this. Be sure to check it if you think you've discovered Pelle's secret." "Got it," said Annie, putting the ring on her finger. "I'll give it back to you at halftime." "Right," said Jack. "How long is halftime, Roberto?" 15 minutes. "Plenty of time," said Jack. He looked at his seat number. A26. "Okay, I'll find you at seat A26, Annie." Then he swapped tickets with Roberto. "Thank you a million times, Jack," said Roberto. "No problem," said Jack. "See you guys later." And he started up the stairs. "Have fun in the sky," called Annie. "I will." Jack felt great as he started up the steps to the top of the stand. He was sure he'd done the right thing, especially since it was Roberto's birthday. But as Jack climbed higher and higher, his spirits fell. The stands were so high, he wondered if he would be able to see anything. By the time he reached the top rows, he was out of breath. He showed his ticket to an usher, and she pointed toward his seat. Jack squeezed past people and collapsed on the bench. From his seat, the field looked a million miles away. How could anyone enjoy the game from up here, he wondered. He wished huge stadium screens had been invented so everyone could see the game well. The spectators around Jack seemed to be having a great time anyway. A couple and their 2 children were eating tacos and drinking sodas. Others were waving small multicolored flags. A teenage boy next to Jack was looking through a pair of large binoculars. A man with a bushy mustache held a scratchy sounding portable radio. Jack could hear the sportcaster through the static. "Final World Cup champion. 1 billion people around the world are watching on television, and over 100,000 spectators are here in Aztec Stadium. Here they come," shouted the boy looking through the binoculars. Suddenly, the spectators let out a roar. The two soccer teams were running onto the field. Italy's incredible team with blue shirts and white shorts, the teenager with the binoculars said. Brazil, the beautiful team. Yellow shirts, blue shorts, color number 10. Jack couldn't see the colors of any uniform, much less the numbers. Kickoff. And here Pele goes, the commentator on the crackling radio yelled. Pele, there. Where? Wondered Jack. He really wanted to see Pele the Great, but from his seat high up in the sky, the players on the field looked no bigger than ants. The radio commentator shouted excitedly about the game. Jack could only catch pieces of what he was saying. What a pass! Carlos Alberto, captain of Brazil's team, hitting a very long ball. Dangerous free kick. Italy 0, Brazil 0. With every play, everyone in the huge stands screamed, whistled, cheered, or booed. Then thousands of Brazil fans jumped to their feet, pumping their fists in the air and screaming, Go! Jack jumped to his feet too. The teenager with the binoculars shouted, Pele leaped past the defender. He hit the ball and scored. Jack shook his head. He couldn't believe he'd missed seeing Pele make a goal. He really wished he had binoculars. He really wished he was sitting with Annie and Roberto. Everyone sat down. Jack listened carefully as he could to the voice of the radio commentator. Free kick. Way up. Beautiful kick. No wonder Brazil is called the beautiful team. Punches that one away. Dead ball. Nothing on the sportscaster sounded like the secret of greatness to Jack. He just hoped Annie was paying close attention to the game and checking the ring a lot. Even though he was envious, Jack was still glad that Roberto had a great view of the game. If he was up here, he thought, he'd have nothing to report back to his 8 brothers and sisters. Suddenly, thousands of Italy fans jumped to their feet screaming. The older boy with a binocular shouted, Italy scores! Brazil won, Italy won. Jack couldn't wait to switch seats with Annie and watch the game up close. If the ring hadn't glowed for her, it would all be up to him. As soon as the radio announcer shouted, halftime, Jack looked at his watch. It was 12:45. He had 15 minutes to find Annie and Roberto. Jack squeezed past people sitting in his row and took off down the mountain of stairs. Chapter 6. Annie? Roberto? Jack raced down the steep stadium steps, trying to get ahead of the crowd. But by the time he reached the middle section, he had to slow down. The aisle was packed with people buying sodas and flags and soccer caps from vendors. Jack couldn't get past the human traffic jam. He kept looking at his watch as he waited for the steps to clear. After almost 5 minutes, he squeezed through a gap in the crowd. 8:26, he repeated as he struggled to get to the section near the playing field. Finally, Jack reached the last rows of Section A. Annie, Roberto, he whispered as he looked down at the steep rows of seats. All the wide-brimmed hats made it impossible to see. Annie, Roberto, Jack yelled. Annie, Roberto. There was no sign of them anywhere. Jack hadn't expected all the hats or all the people milling around, standing, stretching, talking to neighbors coming and going. Jack looked at his watch again. There were 5 minutes until halftime ended. Stadium officials were telling everyone to return to their seats. Take your seats. Halftime's almost over. Take your seats. Jack didn't know what to do. Suddenly, he was caught in another traffic jam as people climbed up to the higher seats. Keep moving, an usher shouted to everyone. Keep moving. A huge roar came from the crowd. The players were taking their positions again. Kickoff. The second half of the game began. The Brazilian and Italy soccer stars were running in all directions. Even peering through the crowd, Jack loved watching them up close. Suddenly an usher was by his side. Where's your ticket? The man asked. Now's my chance, thought Jack. He showed his ticket. Please help me. I'm looking for A26, he said. My sister. A26? That's not your seat. Your seat is at the top, the stadium official said. Please go there now. But, stared Jack, there's no time, barked the frazzled man. The game has started. Go back to your seat. Jack did as the official said. And he won't know why he didn't show up, he thought, as he climbed to the steep stairs. She'll be worried. He kept peering back down at the first section of it, looking for Annie and Roberto. Finally, Jack arrived back at the top of the stadium. He felt frustrated and anxious as he looked down at his seat. As he sat down in the seat, not only would he ever get a good look at the World Cup players now, but how was he going to find Annie? He wished he had a cell phone, but he knew cell phones hadn't been invented yet. How did anyone find each other in 1970, he wondered. As the fans of the Brazilian team kept whistling and cheering, Jack caught more snatches of the radio commentator. Brazil attacks. Gerson scores a long, low shot. Brazil keeps attacking, passing, dribbling. Jack barely listened to the game anymore. He was too worried about what would do when the game was over. If the stadium was hectic at halftime, it'll be insane when the championship game ends, he thought. He had Merlin's magic mist in his backpack. Should he use it now? He wondered what great talent would help him find Annie. What great talent would help them accomplish their mission? Pele, folks? With a hard shot, the radio commentator's voice crackled. Here comes Alberto. As the game went on, Jack didn't stop worrying about finding Annie. She must be really worried about finding me too, he thought. Knowing her, she might try to get help from the ushers or stadium guards. Maybe she talked to the police. Jack looked up and down the aisle for any officials who might be searching for him. 4 minutes left, the announcer finally yelled. Tasto gets the ball, the teenager with the binoculars said. Someone passes to Pele. Now Gerizino has it. Brazil drives the ball and scores. As soon as it's over, I'll find seat A26, Jack thought. I'll keep looking as long as I have to. Jack just hoped Annie would wait at her seat. He hoped she had discovered the secret of greatness during the game. He hoped Roberto would stick around and take them back to the U.S. Embassy. Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a huge roar from the crowd. Final score, 4-1. The beautiful team has won. Champion of the world. Best World Cup of all time. All of the spectators around Jack were screaming and jumping up and down and hugging each other. As Jack squeezed past the people in his row, the sportscast shouted from the radios. Spectators are pushing past police and news reporters. Mobs are rushing onto the field. They're tearing off the players' shirts, their shoes. The fans have gone wild. Jack hoped Annie wouldn't get impatient in all the chaos and leave her seat to look for him. They never find each other if they are both moving around. Pele's team members have hoisted him onto their shoulders. Celebrations will go on for days. The players will be honored at a giant banquet tonight in Mexico City. excuse me, Jack mumbled as he tried to move past people in his row. He made his way through the crowd of celebrating fans and started down the steep stairs. He was bumped and pushed by people spilling from the stands. He moved as quickly as he could so he wouldn't get trampled. Finally, Jack reached the lower sections of seats. As he looked around, he was accidentally knocked over by rowdy teenagers dancing in the aisle. Jack, screaming and waving flags. He scrambled back to his feet and jumped onto a bench. Finally, he saw them. Annie and Roberto were only a few rows in front of them. They were standing on the bench, but they were facing the field, pumping the air with their fists and shouting and cheering along with the crowd. Jack was flooded with relief, but then he felt angry. What the heck, he thought. Annie wasn't looking for him at all. She did seem a bit worried. She looked like she was having a great time. Annie, Jack yelled. He hurried down to her. Annie! When Annie and Roberto turned and saw Jack, they waved happily. Oh, Jack, I'm so glad to see you, Annie shouted. We waited for you, but when you didn't come, we figured your seat was okay. I hope it was. Well, actually, Jack shouted. Thanks so much for letting me keep my seat for the whole game, Annie shouted. Roberto and me had the best time. The game was incredible. Yes, Jack, Roberto said. I had the best time of my whole life, but I was worried about you. I hope your seat in the sky was good. Jack took a deep breath. And then for the second time that day, he chose to do the right thing. Yeah, sure. My seat was fine, he said with a sigh. It was fine. Totally fine. Chapter 7. Bye, Pele. I'm so glad, shouted Annie. Come and squeeze in here with us to watch. Everyone has gone crazy. Jack climbed onto the bench and stood between Annie and Roberto as they watched the happy celebration on the field. The president of Mexico presented a giant trophy to Brazil. Carlos Alberto, the captain of Brazil's team, lifted it high above his head. Yay, Brazil, shouted Roberto. Yay, Pele. Did the ring of truth ever glow? Asked Jack. Jack asked Annie. When you were watching Pele up close, did you ever learn the secret of greatness from him? Not yet, said Annie. Yay, Pele! Not yet, said Jack. Then when? Don't worry, said Annie. We still have time. She pulled the ring off her finger. Here, you can wear it again. Jack slipped the ring on his finger. But what's the use, he thought. We lost our big chance. How will we ever get close to Pele now? Followed by hundreds of photographers and TV camera, the beautiful team was marching around the field. Confetti and streamers floated down from the stands. Firecrackers were whistling and popping over the stadium. Flag bearers waved huge green, yellow, and blue Brazilian flags, and a band was playing. Annie and Roberto clapped in the rhythm and to the music. Trying to hide both his worry and disappointment, Jack clapped with them. They're leaving now, said Roberto. Police were leading Pele off and all the other Brazilian players off the crazy crowded field. TV cameras, reporters, and mobs of fans followed the world champion. We should follow the team too, said Annie to Jack. You want to? We have to, Jack said sharply. We still have a mystery to accomplish, remember? Come with us, Roberto, said Annie. Let's all follow the team. Pronto? They climbed down from this bench and started running across the huge green soccer field. The parade of fans and players was leaving by the farthest exit. We'll catch up them outside the stadium, said Roberto, running alongside Jack and Annie. If I could even get 20 feet from Pele, I would be happy forever. Me too, said Annie. Jack and I have a question for him. No kidding, thought Jack. Jack, Annie, and Roberto hurried through the exit, leaving the Aztec Stadium and heading into the parking lot. Over there, they're getting on a bus, said Roberto. That far, fans and media were swarming around the bus. Photographers were snapping pictures one after another. Flashbulbs blazing, TV reporters were shouting questions to the team. Supporters were cheering and waving flags. Hurry, cried Jack. They all ran faster, but before they could get to the bus, it pulled away from the crowd. Police pushed fans out of its path so it could leave. Goodbye, said Annie. Goodbye, Pele, Roberto yelled. Jack, Annie, and Roberto watched the bus move out of the giant parking lot to Aztec Stadium. Well, there goes our chance to accomplish our mission, Jack thought dismally. There will be no reason to journey to Camelot now. It'll be the first time we've ever failed. Don't worry, said Annie to him, as if she read his mind. I'll bet the team's heading to the city. Let's go back and look for them there. Okay, I guess that might work, said Jack, trying to not give up hope. I heard on the radio they're all going to a banquet tonight. Cool, said Annie. Someone's bound to know where that banquet is. Then maybe we can use our magic mist to get into the party. What, like make a wish to be the best party crashers in the world? Said Jack. Annie laughed. Whatever it takes, she said. She turned to Roberto and asked, Roberto, can you help us get back to the city? Of course. I owe you everything, he said. Not really, said Jack. Everyone deserves a good birthday. Thank you, Jack, said Roberto with a big grin. Come with me. Jack and Annie followed Roberto away from the giant concrete building, through the crowded parking lot, and toward the tram line. Whoa, said Annie. Thousands of people were waiting to board the trams. We'll have to wait many hours to get one, said Roberto. Is there another station nearby? Jack asked. Yes, but it'll be just as crowded, Roberto answered. What do you think we should do? Said Annie. I have an idea, said Roberto. My great aunt lives in a neighborhood not north of here. Near her house, there's a bus stop. Want to give it a try? Sure, said Jack. We don't have another choice. He and Annie followed Roberto away from the tram station. Clouds had moved back in. A soft rain fell as they walked along a road crowded with cars leaving the stadium. Horns were blaring and drivers were shouting at each other. This way, said Roberto, and he led Jack and Annie away from the busy road down into a run-down neighborhood. They passed St. Anthony's Church, a junk store, a laundromat, and a beauty shop. Then Roberto led them down a dirt path between rows of stucco houses. In the light rain, families sat on front porches. Several were listening to portable radios on. The announcer was repeating the news about the World Cup final. At the end of the street was a vacant lot filled with kids. When Jack and Annie and Roberto drew closer, they saw about 20 boys and girls of all ages running around barefoot and covered with mud. The kids were playing soccer. The goal lines had been marked off with tattered nets. A grown-up on the sideline was acting as a referee. He blew a whistle. Halftime! All the kids stopped running. Several players walked away from the field as others gathered in small groups to talk. Hey, Roberto, an older boy waved. Hey, Miguel, Roberto waved back. What are you doing here? shouted Miguel. I'm taking my friends to the city, Roberto answered. We're going to catch the bus. Hey, Roberto, another kid yelled. Hey, Diego, did you hear that Brazil won? Called Diego. Yay! Roberto pumped the air with his fist. Pele the Great. Then he turned to Jack Nanny. I played with these kids once when I was visiting my aunt. If they come over, please do not tell them that we just saw the World Cup final. It would make them sad that they could not afford to go. Okay, we won't, said Annie. Jack nodded. Again, he was impressed by Roberto's kindness. The boy seemed to care about everyone's feelings. Roberto, can your friends play soccer? Miguel yelled. Our team just lost some players for the second half. Before Roberto could answer, another boy jumped in. No, Miguel, not Roberto. Remember that time he played? He was the worst player ever. Yeah, Miguel. Remember? Yelled a tall girl. He made us lose big time. I didn't ask Roberto to play, Carla, Miguel said. I asked if his two friends could play. We lost our three forwards, but we can play with two. Jack glanced at Roberto. The smile was gone and he was staring at the ground. No way, said Annie to Jack, grinning her teeth. Not in a million years. Right, not even if we had a mission and we were the best soccer players ever, said Jack. Come on, Roberto, let's get out of here. Wait a minute, said Annie. Then she turned back to Miguel's team. Yes, Miguel, we can play. Are you crazy, Jack asked her. We'll play on your team, Annie yelled again to Miguel. But only if you let Roberto play. All three of us want to be your forwards. Roberto shook his head. No, not me. They do not want me. I'm not that great either, said Jack. Annie, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Nothing. Annie reached into Jack's backpack and took out the small bottle of Merlin the Magician. In fact, everything is about to be great for all three of us. Chapter 8, Game of a Lifetime. Seriously? Said Jack. Yes, said Annie. What about our mission? Getting into the banquet, meeting the players, said Jack. Right now, this seems more important, don't you think, said Annie? Jack looked at Roberto's sad face. He thought about the boys' kindness and happy excitement at the stadium. Yeah, he said. Yeah, it does. He turned and yelled at Miguel. We'll play, but all of us or none of us. Oh, okay, Miguel said reluctantly. Roberto shook his head. No, Jack, no, he said. Diego's players laughed. You'll lose big time for sure, Miguel, one of them said. Big time. Give us a minute, Jack said to the soccer players. And he huddled with Jack and Annie and Roberto. Then he huddled with Annie and Roberto. Jack, they're right. I'm not a good player, said Roberto. Me neither, said Jack. But together we'll make a beautiful team. Listen, Roberto, said Annie. We'll use magic from Merlin the Magician of Camelot to make a wish. To play like Pele, finished Jack. Magic, said Roberto. Yes, Miss gathered at the first light on the first day of the new moon on the Isle of Avalon, said Annie. Roberto shrugged. Okay, he said. Are you guys playing or not? Miguel shouted. We're playing, Jack yelled over his shoulder. He pulled the cork from the bottle and breathed in Merlin's magic mist. He smelled oranges and cinnamon and cider. I wish to play like Pele, he whispered. Jack gave the tiny bottle to Annie. She breathed in the mist and said, I wish to play like Pele. Annie gave the bottle to Roberto and he breathed in the magic mist. Then he exclaimed with great enthusiasm, I wish to play like Pele. Come on, Miguel shouted from the soccer field. We're coming, 1 sec, Jack shouted. He put Merlin's magic mist away and glanced at his watch. It's 3:15 now. We have 1 hour of magic. At 4:15, the magic ends. Let's go. Jack confidently led Annie and Roberto toward the soccer game. Then they got to the edge of the field. Jack stopped. Off with the shoes, he said cheerfully. The three of them slipped off their shoes and socks. to be like the other kids. Jack left his backpack next to the shoes, then he clapped his hands. Okay, he said, let's play ball. As Jack, Annie, and Roberto walked onto the field, mud oozed between their toes. The rain had stopped, but the ground was soaked. They took forward positions on Miguel's team. We're ahead by 2 goals, said Miguel. Don't blow it, okay? Jack just smiled. Buzzing with excitement, he was eager to play. The referee placed the soccer ball in the center of the muddy field. A kicker and another teammate from Diego's team stood near the ball, on the other side of the center line. The opposite team glared at the 3 forwards, but Jack wasn't worried. He grinned back at them, eager for the game to start. The referee on the dusty sideline blew a whistle, and the second half of the match began. A kicker on Diego's team tapped the ball to her teammate, who passed it to Diego. As Diego and some other teammates knocked the ball around, Jack noticed that they were really good soccer players. But then suddenly Annie slipped in and stole the ball. She whacked it with her instep, passing it to Jack, who slid it to Roberto. Roberto began moving the ball down the field. As Diego's defenders moved in, Roberto changed pace from slow to fast, slow to fast. The ball seemed glued to his feet until he shot and drove in like a missile into the net. Drove the ball right into the net. Score! Shouted the referee. Goals! Jack, Annie, and Roberto shouted, pumping the air with their fists. All the other players gasped in amazement. Who are you guys? Carla shouted. The goalie kicked the ball back into play. Carla passed it to a girl who tried to pass it to a boy. But like lightning, Jack moved in and shot the ball through the air to Roberto. Roberto used his thigh to pop the ball to Annie. Annie stopped the ball with her foot and dribbled it past 2 defenders down the field, then passed it to Jack. Jack moved the ball forward, backward, and sideways with short taps of his feet. He had never had so much fun in his life. He felt as if his feet could do anything. He saw Roberto across the field. He kicked the ball to him, passing it over the heads of defenders. Roberto gave the ball a leaping header, sending it to Annie. Annie trapped the ball on the ground, then ran with it, keeping it close. She faked a move one way, then another. Then she kicked the ball backward to Roberto, who delivered another perfect shot into the net. Score! Goal! Jack, Annie, and Roberto shouted, pumping the air with their fists. The goalie knocked the ball back into play. The opposite team started down the field, but Jack moved faster. He intercepted it and passed it to Annie. Annie sent the ball back to Roberto, who scooped his foot under the ball and popped it over a group of players right to Jack. Jack outjumped 2 defenders and hit the ball with his chest, sending it down the field. Roberto sped after the ball, stole it from 2 players, and gave it a swift kick right into the net. Goal! Jack, Annie, and Roberto shouted, pumping the air with their fists. Goal! Echoed the kids on Miguel's team and Diego's team. All the players seemed to be enjoying the work of the beautiful team, Jack, Annie, and Roberto. As the game went on, everyone was playing well, but Diego's players were no match for Jack, Annie, and Roberto. The 3 of them were like a goal-scoring machine. Hearing the shouting and cheering from the soccer game, people left their porches and yards and hurried over to see the match. The spectators watched Jack, Annie, and Roberto move like dancers, making low free kicks, long-range kicks, and leaping headers. They watched them hit the ball with their right and left feet, their foreheads, and their chests, stomachs, and thighs. They watched them dribble the ball down the field, and by tapping it with both feet and sending knuckleballs zigzagging across the dirt right into the net. In the final seconds of the game, everyone watched Jack execute a perfect bicycle kick. Like an acrobat, he threw his legs up in the air and kicked an overhead ball to Annie, who sent it to Roberto, who shot it past the goalie and into the net. Score! All the spectators, all the players, and even the referee pumped the air with their fists in the air, screaming, "Goal!" Then the referee blew the final whistle. "Game over," he shouted. There was a huge roar from the crowd. "What's the score?" someone shouted from the crowd. "Who cares?" said the referee. "That was amazing." All the players from both teams had big smiles on their wet, dirty faces. They were slapping each other on the back. Miguel and Diego picked up Roberto and carried them on their shoulders. Other players gathered around Jack and Annie, asking for their autographs. A teenager took a picture of them with her instant camera. An old man shook their hands, saying, "You three were the beautiful team." In the middle of the noisy celebration, Annie shouted to Jack, "What time is it?" 5 minutes till 4, he said, glancing at his watch. "We'd better go. Remember Coney Island and Thebes?" said Annie. "Oh yeah, definitely," said Jack. On their last 2 missions, they found themselves in big trouble when their magic hour of greatness had ended. Jack and Annie turned to Roberto, who was holding a toddler and posing for the camera. After the picture was taken, Jack leaned close and said, "We have to go. We have to leave before our magic wears off and return into our regular selves." "Okay," said Roberto. He gave the child back to her mother. "Let's go to the city, but I warn you, they will all follow us." "Then let's go while we're still great athletes and runners," said Annie. The 3 of them turned back to the crowd and waved. "Bye," Jack, Annie, and Roberto said, backing up. Everyone shouted at once, "No, wait, don't go, stay. Sorry, but we have to go," said Annie. "Thank you so much for letting us play." Jack grabbed his backpack. All 3 of them grabbed their shoes. "Run!" yelled Roberto. And they took off running away from the soccer field. Kids from both teams ran after them. The kids were shouting, "Stop! Come back! Join our team! Join our team!" But the beautiful team kept running. Using their magic skills, they jumped barefoot over a crumbling stone wall and leaped frogged over a row of garbage cans. "Wait, don't leave us!" The soccer kids kept chasing after them. "This way!" Roberto led Jack and Annie down an alley and out to a dirt road. The 3 of them ran between rows of cinder block buildings. They zipped around a maze of sheets and towels hanging on clotheslines. They jumped over potholes and smelly garbage. As they kept running and leaping, Jack felt as if he were flying. He felt agile and light-footed. Then suddenly Jack felt heavy and clumsy. Out of breath, he slowed down and came to a stop. Annie and Roberto did the same. Covered with mud, the 3 of them collapsed onto the ground. I can't run anymore," said Jack. "Me neither," said Annie. "I'm dead," said Roberto. Jack looked at his watch. 17 minutes after 4, he said breathlessly. "Our magic hour is over." Chapter 9. Go! "So now we can just be our old selves again," said Roberto, panting. There were no signs of the soccer kids. As Jack looked around, he saw newsstands and an outdoor cafe. "Hey, are you guys as hungry as I am?" he asked. "Yes," said Annie and Roberto together. Jack pulled some pesos out of his backpack. "How are we doing here?" he said. He showed his money to Roberto. "Do we have enough for tacos and a bus fare too?" Roberto nodded, grinning. Perfect, said Jack. Let's grab a bite. Then Annie and I have to find a big banquet in the city. Really? Do you not need to wash up first? Asked Roberto. Oh, yeah, Jack sighed as he looked down at his mud-splattered clothes. Let's worry about that after we eat, said Annie. The three of them stood up and headed into the cafe. A heavy-set woman with brown skin and gray hair was frying food behind the counter. A couple of teenagers was putting a coins in a jukebox. Loud music started to play. 3 tacos, plates, and 3 lemonades, please, Roberto said to the woman behind the counter. She nodded and put food onto 3 plates. Then she brought the plates to a table and set them down. Soon she delivered 3 tall glasses of pink lemonade. Jack, Annie, and Roberto dug hungrily into their food. Jack gobbled up tacos filled with tomatoes, chilies, and cheese. He ate a big serving of black beans and yellow rice and gulped down his lemonade. Roberto, you scored a lot of goals today, said Annie, her mouth full. Yeah, your feet move like lightning, said Jack. Roberto laughed. You two made me look good, he said. You passed the ball to me every chance you got. That's called teamwork, said Annie. Yes, it is, said Jack. Someone called us the beautiful team. Right, said Annie. She raised her arm above her head. Yay, beautiful team, she exclaimed. Roberto laughed. You have a good enthusiasm for soccer, Jack and Annie, he said. Enthusiasm is everything. Jack smiled. Right now I have enthusiasm for eating this food, he said. Me too, it's so good, said Annie, taking another bite of rice and beans. Hey, Jack, where did you get that ring? Asked Roberto. It looks like it's on fire. What? Said Jack and Annie together. They both looked at the ring on Jack's finger. It was flickering with light. Oh, man, whispered Jack. Annie's eyes grew wide. What were we just talking about, she asked. Good food, said Jack. Jack's bicycle kick, said Roberto. The beautiful team, said Annie. Enthusiasm, said Roberto. I said enthusiasm is everything. Suddenly the ring exploded with light. That's it, cried Jack. Enthusiasm is everything, said Annie. Roberto, I think you just said something amazing and true and great, said Jack. But it wasn't me who first said it, said Roberto. Pele said it. Pele said that, said Jack. Yes, my father read it in the newspaper, said Roberto. Pele said when you play soccer, enthusiasm is everything. Okay, that's it. We just accomplished our mission, said Annie. We can go to Camelot, said Jack. They both shot their arms into the air and shouted, Goal! What mission? Where's Camelot? Asked Roberto. He looked confused. It's a long story, said Jack. Just know you helped us discover a really important secret of greatness from Pele, said Annie. Thank you. Roberto smiled. You're welcome, he said. But then his smile faded. I'm happy, but I am sad too, he said. Why are you sad? Asked Annie. Today was a magical day, said Roberto, but it will never happen again. I will never be a great soccer player again. Yes, you can be a great soccer player, said Annie. You have lots of enthusiasm. That's all I have, said Roberto. I'm clumsy, I don't run fast or kick well. Before today, I never scored even 1 goal. Roberto, this is really important, said Annie. If you want to be a great soccer player, or great at anything, Jack broke in. Right, if you want to be great at anything, there are 4 secrets you need to know, said Annie. Right, said Jack. First, you need to have humility. That means you have to be willing to learn from others. Roberto has that, said Annie. Absolutely you have that, Jack said to Roberto. Second, being great takes hard work. Do you work hard at practicing soccer? Annie asked Roberto. Well, no, said Roberto. I don't either, said Jack. Okay, so we should both start practicing more. Third, you need to have meaning and purpose in your life, said Annie. Roberto frowned. What does that mean? He asked. That means you try to do something that's good for the world, not just for yourself, said Annie. Oh, well, soccer does that, said Roberto. It brings people together from different neighborhoods. And today it brought people together from all over the world in the stadium. And it brought the three of us together, said Annie. Good, said Jack. And finally, enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is everything we know you have. Yes, said Roberto, smiling again. He settled back in his seat. So I know the thing I must do. I must start practicing very hard. My brothers and sisters can help me with that. Oh, no. He jumped up from his chair. What's wrong, said Annie. I must go now, Roberto said. I forgot all about my family. Everyone will be waiting to hear my stories about the game. Oh, we have to go too, said Jack, standing up with Annie. Jack looked at their bill and left a bunch of pieces on the table. Then they all headed out of the cafe. The rain had let up and there was a steamy mist in the air. Where is the banquet you must find, said Roberto. Oh, we don't have to go there anymore, said Jack. Our mission is done. We just need to get back to the U.S. Embassy. No problem, said Roberto. The bus goes to the Insurgentes station, very near the embassy. We can all get off there, and I'll catch the metro to my neighborhood. Come on. He led Jack and Andy across the vacant lot. Then they started up a dirt road lined with small stucco houses. There it is. Run, said Roberto. An old bus was rattling up the road. Jack and Annie ran with Roberto to the corner. Out of breath, they got to the bus just in time. The doors of the bus opened, and the three of them hopped aboard. Metro Insurgentes, please, Jack said to the driver. He paid for 3 fares. Then, even though there were plenty of seats, Jack, Annie, and Roberto squeezed into a 2-seater so they could all sit together. As the bus wound through the outskirts of Mexico City, Jack leaned his head against the window. Soon he closed his eyes. The next thing he knew, he was back in the game, kicking the ball forward, backward, and sideways, jumping into the air, lobbing the ball past the defender, past the goalie, and into the net. Jack held the trophy high above his head while the crowd roared. Wake up, kids! We're here, announced the bus driver. Jack opened his eyes. The bus driver was standing over them. They'd all fallen asleep on the long ride back to the city. Annie gently shook Roberto's shoulder, waking him. He sat straight up. It's our stop, Roberto, she said. Oh, he said. Jack, Annie, and Roberto scrambled out of their seats. They jumped off the bus and stood together on the plaza of Metro Insurgentes. Do you know how to get to the embassy from here? Roberto asked. Sure, we've been there already, said Annie. Good, said Roberto. He shook Annie's hand, then Jack's. Thank you, Annie and Jack, he said formally. Thank you for everything. Thank you for everything, Roberto, said Jack. Happy birthday forever, said Annie. Roberto flashed his beautiful smile. He waved, and then he turned and hurried into the metro station. What a great kid, said Jack. Yeah, I wish he lived in Frog Creek, said Annie. Me too, said Jack. Well, ready? Yep, said Annie. Onward to Camelot. It was dark as Jack and Annie headed up the Florentia Avenue. They passed the embassy and the Angel and then ran down the street to the embassy. The embassy grounds were quiet. There was no sign of guard on duty. I hope Benny got to see the game on TV, said Annie. I would like to see that game someday, said Jack. I bet there's a way to see it back home on the computer or the DVD. Hey, you really couldn't see anything from Roberto's seat, could you, said Annie. Jack shook his head. You're a pretty good person, said Annie. Before Jack could say he wasn't that good, Benny stepped out of the embassy. Hi, y'all. You're just getting back from the game, he asked. Yep, said Jack. Did you all have a good time, said Benny. Yes, said Annie. And you know what, said Jack, thinking about running around the soccer field with Danny and Roberto. It was a game of a lifetime. It sure was. I got to see some of it on TV, said Benny. I'm headed home now. Night. Good night, said Danny. She and Jack stood on the lawn of the embassy until Benny had disappeared down the city sidewalk. Pronto, said Annie. Jack and Annie hurried up the rope ladder hidden in the trees. They climbed into the magic treehouse and looked out the window together. A fairy waterfall of green and yellow stars was bursting above the jagged skyline of Mexico City. With whistles and pops, the fireworks celebrated the game of a lifetime. Goodbye, Mexico, said Jack. Goodbye, Polly, said Annie. Good luck, Roberto, said Jack. As the fireworks kept exploding, Jack pulled out his pencil and notebook, knelt down on the floor, and added the fourth secret of greatness to their list. Enthusiasm. Good, said Annie. Let's take our list to Camelot now. She picked up the scroll lying on the floor and pointed to the word Camelot in Merlin's note. I wish we could go there, she whispered. A blast of light, a roar of wind, a rumble of thunder, and they were there. Chapter 10. Candles in the Forest. Golden light flooded the treehouse. Jack and Annie looked out the window. It was early evening. The magic treehouse had not landed in a tree. It had landed in a small clearing in a Camelot forest. All around, thousands of lanterns hung from oak trees. Their candle flames shone on knights in gleaming armor and ladies in cone-shaped hats with flowering veils. Jack couldn't speak. Even Annie was speechless. Morgan Le Fay stepped from the crowd. The enchantress librarian dressed in a long red velvet gown. Her white hair shimmered in the candlelight. Welcome back, Jack and Annie, said Morgan. Thank you, breathed Jack. I'm sorry we're so dirty, said Annie. We just played a tough game of soccer. You look wonderful to us, said Morgan, smiling. All of Camelot celebrates your return. 52 times you have traveled to faraway places in my magic treehouse. 52 times you have proven your courage and kindness under the most difficulty of circumstances. It is a magical number, the same number as there are weeks in a year. Carrying his staff, Merlin stepped forwards and stood beside Morgan. Jack and Annie, I have heard stories of your adventures long before I met you, he said. I could not believe two children would ever adventure into the lands of Dinosaur Castle, ancient Egypt, and pirates and return unharmed. You even outsmarted me when you saved Morgan from a spell I playfully had put her under. Morgan gave Merlin a look. Then she turned back to Jack and Annie. And we had fun, didn't we, she said, when we journeyed to the time of ninjas in the rainforest, the ice age and the moon. Yes, said Jack. And Jack and I had fun when we solved your 4 riddles, Annie said breathlessly, on the coral reef in the Wild West, in the Serengeti plains of Africa, and in the Arctic. And when you became master librarian, said Jack, and we rescued the ancient stories from Rome, China, Ireland, and Greece. And when you saved me from a spell, said a voice from the crowd. Woof, woof! Teddy, said Annie. The firelight shone on the young sorcerer's tousled red hair as he stepped forward. Remember when I was a dog? Said Teddy, grinning. Jack and Annie laughed and nodded. And when we escaped the Titanic, said Teddy, and the buffalo stampede, and the tiger in India, and the forest fire in Australia, Outback. Yes, said Jack and Annie together. And do not forget how you saved His Majesty from despair, said a woman in a snow-white gown. A veil hung from her wreath of blue flowers around her hair. Standing next to her was a man in a purple tunic on his head and was a simple gold crown. Queen Guinevere, King Arthur, said Annie. You brought me wisdom and courage from the American Civil War, said King Arthur, and the Revolutionary War. In a schoolhouse on the American prairie and an earthquake in San Francisco. And then you discovered the secrets of everyday magic, said Morgan, from the people of the first Thanksgiving, the gorillas of the cloud forest, and William Shakespeare and friends in Hawaii. And you saved the 4 treasures of Camelot for Merlin, said King Arthur. Merlin laughed. Yes, you outwitted the dragons of the other world, the Raven King and the Sea Serpent and the Ice Wizard, he said. And do not forget when Teddy and I journeyed to the 4 beautiful cities, said a young girl. Her dark hair curled down to over her shoulders. Her sea blue eyes shone in the firelight. Ancient Baghdad, Venice, Paris, and New York, she said. Jack nodded. Hi, Kathleen, he said shyly. And thank you, Jack and Annie, for saving another from a spell too, said Kathleen, on our mission in New York City. A white unicorn gracefully stepped forward and stood beside Kathleen. He lowered his head. Dianthus, said Annie. The wand of Dianthus helped you learn 4 secrets of happiness, said Merlin, from Leonardo da Vinci, Basho the poet, the deep sea, and best of all, from this little one you brought me from Antarctica. The magician picked up a baby penguin that had been hiding behind his cloak. Penny, said Jack. You and 4 creative geniuses of history. Thank you too, said Morgan. You're for helping them begin the path of giving their gifts to the world. Mozart and Louis Armstrong, said Jack, remembering their friends, and Lady Gregory and Charles Dickens. And thank you for helping Teddy to undo the spell he accidentally cast on Penny, said Merlin. He confessed all to us later. We went to the Taj Mahal in India for that, said Annie, and met St. Bernard dogs in Switzerland and Abraham Lincoln in China, and pandas in China, said Jack. And now you have returned from more missions, said Merlin. And you are successful, I presume? Yes, said Annie. We learned secrets of greatness by spending time with Alexander the Great and his black stallion, and with the great Houdini and his wife Bess, Florence Nightingale, and finally, said Jack, from Pele the Great. He held the notebook paper on which he had written the 4 secrets of greatness. Merlin looked at the paper from Jack and read in deep, resonant voice. Humility, hard work, meaning and purpose, enthusiasm. The magician was silent for a moment. He seemed deep in thought. Then he looked back at Jack and Annie. Yes, he said. Perfect. Thank you, Jack and Annie, for your greatness. Jack and Annie both shrugged. We're not that great, said Jack. We're just regular kids, said Annie. Really lucky regular kids. On your journey, you have learned many things, said Morgan. And you have seen many parts of the world and met many remarkable people. Jack, you have become kinder and more courageous. Annie, you have become more thoughtful. Your next mission may be even more challenging, said Merlin. Really, breathed Jack. How do we prepare for that? Don't not worry, said Morgan. We want you to do what others your age do. Learn new things. in school. Have fun with your family and friends. Read books. Play games outside, said Teddy. Play with music. Play with animals, added Kathleen. Jack and Annie smiled. Goodbye, Jack and Annie, said Merlin. For now, said Morgan. The candle flames danced wildly in the gentle breeze, and the golden light bells rang through the air. Sweet music filled the forest with the sounds of flutes and horns. The wind began to blow. The trio started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. The pale gold light of dawn shone through the window of the treehouse. Jack and Annie were back in the woods of Frog Creek, and their clothes were clean. No time at all had passed in Frog Creek. Did all that just happen? Said Jack, dazed. All what? Said Annie. Thousands of candles in the woods. King Arthur, Queen Guinevere, Merlin, Morgan, Teddy, Kathleen, all that, said Jack. I think, said Annie. Amazing, said Jack. I wonder what our next mission will be. I hope we find out soon, said Annie. Yep, said Jack. Let's go home. He pulled on his backpack and started down the rope ladder. Annie followed him. They stepped onto the ground and started through the summer woods. Neither spoke as they walked under the trees through the patch of shadowy of light. Finally, Jack broke the silence. I think I'll buy a soccer goal with my birthday money, he said, and set it up in the backyard. Good idea, said Annie. And let's email Jenny and Randy and Quinn and see if they want to practice with us. Yeah, and Will and Lally and Griffin, said Jack. And I want to pick up some books at the library, too. Check out some exciting ones, like big adventures and interesting information. Cool, said Annie. Okay, I guess this is what we will do today, said Jack. Breakfast, bike to the library and the sports shop. Home for lunch, practice soccer, eat dinner, read before bed. Sounds like a good plan, said Annie. A perfect one, said Jack. And then they quickened their steps as they left the Frog Creek woods headed for home. Enthusiasm is everything. It must be taught and varying like a greater steering Pele.